Welcome to Spotlight. I'm Rian Keating. Today we're at Tavern on the Green, where we are delighted to have the opportunity to interview this year's Tony Award winner from the Tap Dance Kid. Please welcome Hinton Battle. Mr. Battle, welcome. This is a pleasure.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Certainly, the Tap Dance Kid did not open to terrific reviews, yet word of mouth seems to have progressed its run.
Yes, I think we opened to the worst reviews in the history of theater, but we managed to do well because the audience loves the show, and because of that, we've got a lot of word of mouth, as you said, and people tell their friends and tell more friends. It's like that commercial I told you, the girl with the hairdo, but it goes on and on and on, and from that we've become one of the biggest, or the biggest hit on Broadway for 1984. Which is great,
How much do you think the television commercial has to do with that?
Oh, I think it helped a lot. Michael Peters directed that commercial, who also directed various other things, along with the Michael Bennett's Dream Girl. And I think it gave the audience a sense of what the show is about, and also got a lot of little kids interested because we have kids in the show. And I mean, we have on a weeknight and on weekends, audience full of kids screaming, and everyone loves it. So I think it helped tremendously. Yeah.
Do you feel that because the television campaign has been very heavy, that the audiences are generally people who don't necessarily go to theater?
I think we're getting, I do. I think we're getting a mixture of the two. I think we're getting a mixture of people that don't normally go to theater a lot and people that go to theater all the time. I look out my dressing room window and count the limousines to see if we're a hit or not. But I think that the commercials helped a lot in that sense, to create a new audience, and which is not an easy thing to do. I mean, ticket prices are not cheap, so a lot of people are very skeptical of spending that kind of money to see a show.
How much influence do you think critics should be allowed to have on the success or failure of a show?
Well, I don't know. That's a tough one. I don't know if it's a matter of how much they have to do with it. I mean, I think everyone's entitled to their opinion of what they think of a show. Unfortunately, a lot of critics are able to kill a show. That I have seen shows and thought they were very good and didn't understand why the reviews were what they were. That's a tough one because I always believe, when I read what the critics say, but I always go to see it for myself because I like to see what it is myself. A lot of people, then again, you're getting down to, it becomes a matter of spending money, and if you hear something bad about something, it's like a product. You're not going to spend a fortune on a product you heard that's not going to work so great, and then it may turn out to be the best thing you've purchased in years. But so it's hard because I do think the critics do have a great influence on the audience. At the same time, I think the audience, in a lot of cases, go out and find out for themselves. It was with our show. I mean, in the beginning, believe me, we didn't have packed houses after reviews came out. But because the audience came anyway and said, oh, well, I'll see it anyway, and can't be that terrible, and then loved it and told their friends about it, and as a result we became a hit. So. As
you said, the reviews initially were not good. I know you had your opening night party here.
Yes, lovely Tavern on the Green.
What was the initial response of the cast when the reviews did come in?
I think I read the Times and left. I think that was my reaction to them. I fared well actually by the reviews, but the show didn't. I mean, it takes more than one person to make an entire show work. I mean, you want the show to do as well as each individual in the show. You want the show to be the main thing going on here. But it was happy, and it was like a bomb dropped, and gas was released, and everyone started disappearing. Up to midnight before the reviews came out. It was quite a nice party.
Did you find that initially when the houses were not full that it had an effect on the morale of the cast?
Yeah, but after opening night, our closing notice went out, and the show was going to close. The morale was very down. There was a lot of crying. I mean, it was my first time experiencing a show that wasn't going to run. I have never been in a show that closed. So for me, it was sort of like, what is this? I don't know of a show not running. Whenever I do a show, they always run. So I didn't know what to feel. I didn't know whether to be happy, sad, or, because it was foreign. I mean, I've done, 4 or 5 shows now, so this one is like, boom, we're closing. It's like, closing? What do you mean closing? So I got on the phone and called up all the performers in the cast and said, look, the show, we have a choice here. Either we can let the show close, or we can all take salary cuts. It's better to make, $90 than no bucks at all.
Well, absolutely.
And to keep the show running, because there is an audience for it, and maybe if we stick it out long enough, they'll catch on and people will come. So that's kind of what we did. We took a cut. All the principal characters in the show took cuts in salary. They got the musicians to take cuts. I mean, everyone was really pulling for the show. The creative staff, director, producer, choreographer, they all took cuts. They all took huge royalty cuts to keep the show alive. Schubert's came in and gave us more money to do the commercial. So everyone was really pulling for the show to go. And we really did well. I mean, there was another rough time, and we were just starting to build up. And Dustin Hoffman decided that was his favorite theater. We sent him a letter and saying, please, look, we're barely getting off the ground here. There's tons of great theaters on Broadway, can't you, No, but he wanted that theater, or whatever the case may be. Anyway, we had to move out. So we finally found a new theater, which is the Minskoff Theater, which is a huge theater. It's like a barn. And I just thought, we're going to that theater. We'll die in 2 weeks. I better look for another job. We moved into the new theater after having 2 weeks off now. This is after finally getting the show to build up to a little momentum, getting an audience coming. And then we had to move. The show had to close down for 2 weeks. So we closed down for 2 weeks. Everyone crossed their fingers. I left the country. I'm not going to think about it. I'll come back. Came back. Started the show at the Minskoffs. Came back to Full Houses. Full Houses every night. And we've been doing that way ever since. So I think between the campaign of the commercial and people really believing in the product and giving their all, pushing 100%. I mean, because every night was like opening night, because we had such horrible reviews, and everyone refused to believe the reviews. So it was like opening night, constantly proving yourself to the audience, and they loved it, and now we're a big smash.
What do you think the appeal of the Tap Dance Kid is?
I think it's because it's a family show. You deal with family and a family situation, and hopes and dreams, and rights of little children, rights of women. You deal with the rights of everyone, and I think that has a lot of appeal to it. I mean, there's a song I sing, My Luck is Changing, which is in the second act. And I play choreographer, and I'm hustling trying to get jobs. And I finally get this one job I've been dying to get, which is a choreographer Broadway show. How ironic! So I get the job, and I sing a song about my luck is changing. And so many people come backstage afterwards and say to me, "Boy, I really identify with that song, because I've gone through that. I've lived through that." When you're waiting and the phone doesn't ring yet, and you know what it is, whether it's the job for the law firm that you've been dying to get, or for the ad agency, or whatever it is, so a lot of people identify it in all the age range. So that's I think has a lot to do with it, which is good.
Well, I know you had started dancing very young, and I was very intrigued by the relationship between Willie the Tap Dance Kid and his father, because his father seems to be a bit of an emotional cripple, which is probably putting it mildly.
To put it lightly.
But do you find that that relationship unrealistic in terms of a dancer or an aspiring dancer and a stubborn father?
Well, my case, my problem wasn't that. My father had not much to say about it. I mean, my mother was really gung-ho for it, so I mean, she wasn't as passive as this mother is in the show in the first act. I mean, later on she becomes a little more aggressive. But my mother was gung-ho all the time, and Dad just sort of backed down and didn't say much about it. I remember after getting my first Broadway show, The Wiz. My father came to see the show, came backstage and says, well, oh, that was great. You were really good. Now, when are you going to get a job? I said, Dad, this is a job. This is what I do now. You know, so I think for him, it was a matter of understanding, and he didn't have much to say about it. I mean, he's very proud of me that I'm doing this, but I have met people that have seen the show that are in that same situation where maybe the little girl wants to do something and the father's totally against it. I've received fan mail. I mean, I feel like Dear Abby sometimes. Little kids write to me and say, what should I do? I saw your show, I love your show, and I want to be a nurse, and my father wants me to be something else, a housewife or something. What should I do? He won't let me, you know, it's something that happens all the time, and unfortunately I never know if I'm giving the right answer or to tell a little kid like that. I mean, you're dealing with a family, you know. But it is a common problem, and everyone sees the show and recognizes it and deals with it and relates to it, and I think that has a lot to do with our success.
Well, you've said often that what you want to do is communicate through art, and it seems you're certainly doing that with this show.
Yeah.
You had started dancing at 9, if I'm not mistaken. Did you find that was young?
Yeah, much too young. I think for me, 25 would have been much too young. I didn't want to dance, so I mean, I resisted it all the way. But I started at 9, but I don't think it's too young. Actually, I think it's the perfect age to start dancing, you know, if you're gonna pursue it. You know. But at that time, 9 years old, who knows what they want to dance? I mean, everyone else is playing football. What am I doing? I'm taking ballet classes in ballet tights and slippers. You know, just wasn't my idea of a Saturday afternoon. But you know, it kind of paid off in the end.
Well, it certainly did. How did your peers react to it? Because I know this is something that's also dealt with in tap dance kids.
My peers in where I grew
your
up?
Classmates.
Oh, the teasing and it wasn't easy. I mean, sneaking home and putting the ballet shoes and everything in a brown paper bag so everyone thought I was coming from the store, you know, the Safeway bag, you know, carrying it like you've got a bag full of groceries. Actually, you've got some ballet shoes in there and tights, you know. You know, so it wasn't easy. You know, hey, where you going? Why don't you come hang out with us? Well, I can't. I gotta go to the store. Well, you always go to the store all the time, the same time, every day. What's wrong with you? I know my mom eats a lot, you know. You know, anything, just get them off my back. But no, it wasn't easy. I got teased and the name calling and on and on. But
at what point did you realize that the perseverance would pay off? Because I'm sure there must have been times when you really would have rather given it all up.
Oh yeah, I think I did. It didn't really. I didn't realize it until I was in New York. I had moved to New York. I came to New York very young. I came to New York when I was 13 and started dancing here. I guess I was like 15, and I met other guys, other boys that were in the same situation. We were all from all over the country, and they brought us to New York, and we were all studying at School of American Ballet, and they paid us a lot of money, $200 a month. It was great. We could eat steaks every night. It was quite nice. And we lived on $200 a month. And there were other guys in the same situation, so that made it a lot easier to deal with, because, I mean, they all came from neighborhoods where they were called names. So we all sort of clung together and really started getting into it, and really started to appreciate it, appreciate the craft. So,
do you think because of break dancing and certainly ballet greats like Baryshnikov, the image of the male dancer is changing?
Oh yeah, I think they're realizing it's like you're an athlete. I mean, it's really not. I don't know if the image is changing. I mean, it's always been the same as far as what the dancers do, but I think they're realizing it takes just as much discipline. It actually takes more discipline than studying is playing basketball or playing any sport. I mean, you got to watch your weight. You can't eat too much. You have to, you know, you're constantly working out. You're constantly taking classes, constantly trying to keep your body in shape, the waist down, the pecs up. You don't want the pecs down and the waist down. You know, you want it the other way around. But so they're finally realizing, I think, that it is it's like a sport. It really is like a sport. and they're appreciating it. I think breakdancing, more so than any form of dance, has proven that to be the most. Because a lot of the breakdance moves are, I mean, things that I've done in ballet classes, I did dancing, and some of the stuff that they do, the flips on the back and the spin, I was doing it in dancing 2 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago. So I mean, I think that they're sort of realizing it.
You'd said that you would come to New York at 13. Did you find it hard to assimilate here? Or
I loved it. I couldn't wait to get out of Washington, D.C. No, I love New York when I came. Washington is very quiet, a very conservative city. I came to New York and people were wild, and there were people everywhere. I was just, I was like, a cat let loose, just went, my eyes went berserk and I went hunting, I loved New York when I got here. I still do. I still like it very much. But I'm older and wiser now. I'm older and foolish. No, but I love it. I like the city a lot.
You had made your Broadway debut in The Wiz, as you said, as the Scarecrow, which was not a role that you had gotten from auditioning. Originally, you had started out in the chorus, and you had replaced the original Scarecrow. How did that feel, coming into New York with a featured part? Did you feel any pressure at that time?
I felt a lot of pressure, because I didn't, everyone else in the cast, had been working on their roles for, they'd been out of town maybe a month, 2 months almost. I had 2 weeks, if that much, I think, to learn a role. They rewrote the role, get into a character, build a character, come to New York and open and debut. So it was a lot of pressure. I remember the first night I went on, when I hadn't been rehearsed or anything, and they said, "Oh, Hilton Battle, let him do it." So they came to my room and asked me to play the role for that second act that day. And there, I had the director on one side, the stage manager on the other side, Stephanie Mills in this ear, the costume guy on this side, the guy doing the makeup, and there was someone doing the wig, and they were all telling me things to do. That was a lot of pressure. You feel like, oh, I'm holding up the world here, but a lot of pressure.
How were you able to cope with that at that age?
It wasn't very easy. I had a lot of difficulty coping with it because I didn't. I don't think I quite realized what I was really getting into. You're talking about taking over a major role in a Broadway show. But when I wasn't really that familiar with Broadway, Broadway from living in Washington and Broadway television shows or things like that, but actually being in New York and seeing a lot of Broadway shows, I think the only Broadway show I had ever seen when I came to New York was Pearly. And we stood, it was me and my sister, we stood in the wings and watched from the side of the stage and watched the show. And that was the only show I had ever seen. So I wasn't familiar with Broadway at all. I'd come to New York to study classical ballet, and then I ended up on Broadway. And the fact doing 8 shows a week, that was a major thing to deal with. I was used to, in a ballet company, the company may perform 8 times a week, but out of the 8 times a week, you may only perform 3 times or 4 times. Maybe you're only in 4 of the ballets for the whole week. Learning 8 shows a week and disciplining yourself, and then the responsibility of dealing with other performers. I was still very young and was just right out of school, dealing with publicity and dealing with. You're sort of dumped with a whole lot of stuff. And I really didn't have anyone to sort of take me by the hand and sort of help me out with it. So I do think it was a lot. But I dealt with it somehow.
Well, one thing you had said in an interview was that you had fallen into the star image and you were constantly looking forward to the next party.
Right.
How were you able to straighten out your priorities? At what point was the
When I realized there were not next parties. No, it took a long time. To realize what it was, that it wasn't all party, and it was work. It was more work than party, and the party was only exterior. And it took a long time for me to realize that. Like I said, I really didn't have anyone to talk to about these things. My mother, as happy as she was for me, I really didn't feel I could talk to her about these things. Certain things you just feel like, they'll never understand if I try to talk to them about Broadway and shows and publicity. You know, my mother, you know, works for the government. Ma, I'm having problems. Or my father, you know, just so. It took a long time for me to put it all in perspective and to realize what comes first. And so I guess I kind of did a lot of growing up on my own, which is...
One thing you had done after the Wiz, you went to Chicago and you danced with Maria Talchi in a ballet company. How did that change your perception of being what you termed as a total performer, being a singer, a dancer, and an actor?
Well, my first love was always to be a classical dancer. So I went to Chicago. I had just had a horrible injury. And I went to Chicago to sort of recruit myself and get back into classes slowly. And Maria Talchi was excellent. I wanted to work with her. And so I went there to, you know something? What was the question again?
How it changed your perception of being a total performer?
Well, it didn't really change it. It didn't change it much. It sort of helped me get back in shape to continue to pursue the acting, the singing. I mean, because at that point I couldn't even dance. I mean, the ankle was like a couple of basketballs. But so it took me a while to get back in shape. So what it did make me do is realize that classical dancing wasn't the only thing that I wanted to do. It made me realize that I did enjoy the singing and the acting as much. And I knew if I was to stay with a company, a ballet company, that I would never get the opportunity to do those things. And I wanted to do those things. So
you had also won a Tony Award for Sophisticated Ladies, and when you got the role in that, you didn't know how to tap, if I'm not mistaken. How did you find that situation where you have to tap every night and you don't know how to do it?
Frustrating. Real frustrating. Yeah, that was tough. Well, my audition for them, I had to audition. They said, "Oh, do a tap number." So I was doing dancing at the time, and I asked Gwen Verdon to help me out. So we started trying to do a tap number, and it didn't work out. By the time we finished putting this number together, it was a soft shoe with a lot of style and a big song before I danced. So that's how I got past the audition stage. Once I got to actually performing, I was taking classes like crazy. You know, I'd study in the day and do the show at night to sort of playing catch up. I mean, because these guys were tapping, like Gravy Hines. I mean, they were tapping since, you know, they were little kids. So for me, it was like catch up time. I had to catch up to, you know, to be able to stay on the same stage with someone that was that phenomenal of a tapper. So it was frustrating, but a lot of work, you know, a lot of work. You know.
One thing that resulted from Sophisticated Ladies, you put together a nightclub act.
Yeah.
How would you describe the difference between theater, where you're protected by a proscenium, and a nightclub?
You did your research, I'm telling you.
When you're out on a limb, did you find that?
I liked it. I liked the one-on-one with the audience a lot. You know, with the Broadway show, you don't really, well, depending on the role, you don't really have, this role, I don't have that liberty to do that. I did James Thunder early in Dreamgirls, and he's more, I mean, his whole thing is being a soul singer, nightclub singer, big arena singer. So his whole thing is to communicate one-on-one with the masses of an audience. So for that, I mean, for that role, it was great because I could use that. But I enjoy club act work because you do get a chance to work one-on-one with the audience, which is fun, you know. I like
Your first film, Cotton Club, will be coming out this December. How did you find making a film after theater? Is there much of a transition that you go through?
Not really. I mean, it's work. I think the thing that you find out is that with theater, you do it, the curtain goes up, you do it once, and whatever mistakes happen, and the curtain goes down. With film, you do it once, test shot. You do it twice, rehearsal shot. You do it 3 times, this is the take. Do it 4 times, let's get another take on it. 5 times, let's get another angle on it. 6 times, you're exhausted, but let's get another angle. So they're both hard, and they're both hard in different ways. But I think with film, you have to be ready all the time, because you never know. I mean, like, film can break, and all right, you have to stop in the middle of the shoot, and you sit down, and then okay, the film's ready, and that could have been 30 minutes. Now you have to get up and go full force again. So it's tough in that aspect of it, But I love it. It's great. Yeah, I'd do it again.
Hinton, I've really enjoyed our chat. Our time is up.
Pleasure. Oh, all right. Oh, so quickly.
I appreciate your taking time today.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
This is Rian Keating, and you've been watching Spotlight with guest Hinton Battle from the Tap Dance Kid. If you have any comments or suggestions, or if you would like to receive our program guide, you can write to myself in care of Hero Productions, 640 10th Avenue, New York, New York, 10036. Until next week, this is Rian Keating from Tavern on the Green. Have a good week.